Welcome to La Forêt Intérieure, and this is the quiet joy of not needing to prove anything. What changes when you stop explaining your life? There's a subtle performance many of us carry without realizing it. It shows up in the way we explain our choices before anyone has questioned them, in the gentle justifications we add to conversations, in the small updates we offer, shaped carefully so our lives appear coherent, sensible, successful enough. We don't call it proving ourselves, we call it being polite or open or keeping people informed. But beneath it, there is often a quiet need to be understood and approved of. For a long time, I didn't notice how much energy this took, how often I was narrating my life as I lived it, explaining why I lived where I did, why my days looked the way they did, why certain things mattered to me more than others. Even joy, I realized, could become something to justify. The shift didn't arrive dramatically. There was no confrontation, no decisive moment where I declared myself free from other people's expectations. It came slowly, through noticing. I noticed how some conversations left me tired, even when they were kind. How certain questions, though well-meaning, asked me to translate my life into terms that made sense to someone else. I noticed how often I softened or reshaped my truth to make it easier to receive. And I began to wonder what life might feel like without that extra layer. The quiet joy of not needing to prove anything is not loud or triumphant. It doesn't arrive with declarations or distance. It shows itself in small ways, in pauses where you don't rush to fill the silence, in answers that are shorter, simpler, unadorned. In the absence of that familiar internal scan, does this make sense? Do I sound okay? It feels like ease. When you stop proving yourself, conversations change. You listen more. You speak less. You no longer feel responsible for how your choices land in someone else's world. You realize that most people aren't actually asking for explanations. They're responding to their own uncertainties, their own need for things to be legible, familiar, reassuring. Once you see that, it becomes easier to step out of the performance. There is also quiet freedom in letting parts of your life remain private. Not secret, just unperformed. You stop offering updates as evidence. Stop measuring progress by how it sounds out loud. Stop shaping experiences into something that can be easily understood or admired. Life becomes less of a story you tell and more of a place you inhabit. I see this mirrored everywhere in nature. The vines near my village don't explain a sparse year. The forest doesn't announce its worth in winter. Nothing pauses to justify why it looks the way it does right now. There's no commentary, no defense, no performance, and still it all belongs. Not needing to prove anything doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it more honestly. You're no longer rehearsing explanations in your head, no longer bracing yourself for judgment that may never come, no longer living slightly ahead of the moment, managing how it might be perceived. You arrive as you are, and that arrival brings a surprising lightness. There's a particular relief in realizing that you don't need to make your life impressive to make it meaningful. That contentment doesn't need an audience. that a quieter life doesn't require defence, that not everyone needs to understand you for your choices to be valid. This isn't indifference, it's confidence without edge. What surprised me most was how much space this created. Without the need to explain, there was more room for presence. Without the need to justify, more room for listening. Without the need to prove, more room for enjoyment. Joy became simpler, less performative, more lived. There will always be moments when explanation is necessary, when clarity is kind, when sharing matters. But there is a difference between communicating and performing, between being open and being on display, between connection and self-translation. Learning that difference is part of growing into yourself. The quiet joy of not needing to prove anything is not about shutting people out. It's about finally being at ease in your own presence. About trusting that your life doesn't need constant narration to be real. That your choices don't need defending to be true. That your way of living doesn't need to make sense to everyone. When you let go of proving, something settles. You stand more firmly where you are. You speak when it matters. You let the rest be. And in that ease, life becomes less about being seen and more about being lived. Love, Georgia. Thank you for listening. This space is for kindred spirits who crave a slower, softer way of living. Subscribe now to receive gentle notes, soul-soothing rituals and quiet inspiration straight to your inbox.